Собственно, вот он. А сейчас мы по другому каналу связи, который оказывается лучше, чем стационарная связь в гостинице. Прошу всех заметить. Попробуем с ним связаться, чтобы не нагружать интернет. Я был удивлен, что стационарная связь хуже, чем видеосвязь.
Hello.
Hello, Puneet.
Hi, Alexei.
Hi. Okay, let's try to begin. Thank you.
Are we live?
Yes, you are online.
Excellent. Can the audience hear me?
Yes, you can, but slowly and loudly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, first of all, thank you all very much for this opportunity to speak with you. I'm calling from London, and I would have liked to have been there in person, but unfortunately my visa was not approved for travel, and so I wasn't able to come. I also have to pass on apologies and regrets from my colleague, Lloyd Chumbley. He's our Vice President of Standards, and he was hoping to attend, but he wasn't able to come either because of family bereavement, and he sent his regrets and apologies for that.
Потому что мне хотелось извиниться, что из-за отсутствия визы не получилось общаться с вами. Вот. К сожалению, Бхарал Пунит тоже не может сейчас присутствовать со мной. Вот. Но тем не менее. Я хочу от своего собственного имени сказать вам, что мы действительно очень заинтересованы в сотрудничестве с вами. Мы благодарим вас за возможность хотя бы вот так вот присутствовать виртуально на вашей сегодняшней конференции. И, конечно, большое спасибо моим коллегам, которые работают в бэк-офисах, помогли нам связаться с Россией. Хотел я с вами поделиться своей презентацией. Поэтому побудьте со мной в течение секунды, я попробую что-то сделать с экрана. Я вам потом покажу презентацию, которую мы раньше подготовили. Насколько я понимаю, что сейчас уже в Москве достаточно поздно, я попытаюсь быстренько пройти по своей презентации, хотя ситуация состоит в том, что мы должны сегодня все это завершить. Дайте мне, пожалуйста, одну секундочку. Извините, что задерживаю ваше внимание, еще подожди мне чуть-чуть. Ну вот не хвали технические офисы поддержки. Ну, попробуем иначе немножко.
Видите, как неприятно, когда визу не дают.
KCV PowerPoint презентация. Ну, это вводный слайд, который говорит о том, что представляет из себя Страховой союз. Поскольку вы это уже знаете, я перейду к видеопрезентации. Сегодня я хотел бы говорить очень коротко о корпоративной стратегии, общей стратегии и стратегии применительно к России, к российскому рынку. Прежде всего, есть очень большие преимущества в реализации совместной деятельности. Если говорить о самой основе того, что здесь делается, есть потоки документации. Я не буду о них долго говорить, но Acord позволяет интегрировать всю страховую историю по всем пользователям, по всем видам данных и поддерживать высокие стандарты качества по всем направлениям. Мы не являемся фирмой, которая работает для получения прибыли. Коротко говоря, мы просто интеграторы, системные интеграторы эффективности работы рынка.
Коллеги, я врубил английский, потому что он более... Там много специфики и очень сложно переводить это сходу.
Three individuals who all have the same business concept, all defined slightly differently, or named slightly differently. So one company calls the account information account, another calls it ACCT as an abbreviation, and the next one ACCT-NO. They all mean the same thing, but if they were to share this information with each other, there would be mapping that was required with each transaction. What Acord does is we work with all the companies in a consensual setting where we share the business concepts, we share the data definitions with each other, we agree on a standard for those, and we run that process through a vote with our membership. When we receive 75% or higher approval, we validate that that is the industry standard, we publish it, and companies can freely download and use that standard. At the end of it, everyone has a similar understanding of what the account means. They use the same definition, and they can map that to their internal systems. But it means when talking with each other, they use a common vocabulary. And so that streamlines the process for electronic communication going forwards. And here we see that all three companies now use the same definition for account and the same XML tag. So very briefly, that was what we do with data standards. And to give you a sense of where the standards are implemented, I'm going to focus on three key lines of business. Our property and casualty standards are implemented in North America, Southern Africa, and Australia. Our life and annuity standards are implemented in North America and China. And our global reinsurance and large commercial standards are implemented in North America, Bermuda, London, continental Europe, Qatar, India, and Singapore. So to focus a little bit more on the business value of why do companies use Acord standards? One, for data integrity. So knowing what data you are receiving from your business partners and being able to deal with it very quickly without having to reconfirm definitions and concepts such as net premium, what is it net of? These are things which are more easily done when the standard is being used. It also means that you have a greater sense of data governance policy. And so if your company is conducting an audit, for example, it can more easily trace back to source where it received its data from and how it was used. And if any work has been done on that data, any assumptions have been made on it, they can be documented too. Using the data standards also improves workflow, so there is less need for manual rekeying. There are fewer errors that are associated with that. And also you can automate systems to conduct operations on an automatic basis if that's what you need to do. So for most instances where there are no queries and no errors, that information can be completed automatically by machine so that your staff can focus on both the problem areas and also on data analysis, so they can focus more on adding value. Using standards also reduces costs. Each implementation of the standard is a simpler exercise and also gives you a greater return on your investment, and allows you to focus on the things that you want to focus on, such as giving you more time to focus on new business relationships or entering new markets or innovating on the products that you already have. And of course, the key reason is ease of doing business, not only with your local business partners, but also with international business partners. As I mentioned, the various markets around the world that use the global reinsurance and large commercial standard do so not only with their own local partners, but also across borders using exactly the same standards and the same processes. So it opens up new markets to you and allows you to receive business from outside of your domestic market. So very briefly, just to summarize that, companies use Acord standards because it helps them to provide better client service through faster processing of transactions, which results in faster payments. So, for example, in the use of electronic back office transactions, we have case studies which show that payment cycles are reduced by as much as 25 to 30 days. Efficiency, because the data moves faster and requires fewer manual interactions, which of course can lead to straight-through processing, and the traceable and auditable data trails that you then achieve through using electronic data standards. And of course, having the data in a standard format means that you're able to run better analytics on it, and not having to spend time on data cleansing also means that your staff have more time to do data analytics. I have one quote here. We could have picked any, but we picked this one from Sue Langley, who is now ex of Lloyd's. But Sue said that Acord is the thread running through all of the projects as Lloyd's strives to deliver clear information standards for an electronic infrastructure that supports placements, claims, and accounting and settlement transactions. Effectively, that every reform program that Lloyd's is undertaking is in some way underpinned by the use of Acord data standards. Very briefly, Acord is not just data tags. It is messages, processes, and the Acord framework. I know that our colleagues in Russia have explained in great detail what the framework is, but effectively, it is the infrastructure for the business. So it defines the way companies conduct business transactions, and it allows you to define your workflows and your internal processes in a way that best suits you. Acord is also about implementation support. We provide testing and certification of implementations, and we also provide training and a certification program for individuals. So if your companies decide to implement Acord, you may choose to have some of your staff go through the Acord certification, Acord Certified Expert Program, not only for training, but also as a qualification so that they can then help you internally with your teams to understand how to implement Acord, where to implement Acord, and the best resources available. Acord also provides advocacy support, and we help to facilitate implementation communities. And we'll talk a little bit more about implementation communities later on. But one of the things that we would really encourage is the setting up of an implementation community in Russia, where you could then share with us your implementation priorities. And we could then help to present best practice from other markets, and also to connect you with the right companies and colleagues that might be able to assist you. Now, our strategy at Acord for the last 40 years has been focused on standards development and maintenance. We've done that across various lines of business, and we've grown that implementation footprint globally. Moving forward, our focus will remain on standards development and maintenance, but increasingly we will be focusing also on implementation. Unofficially, my definition of success for standards is not that they exist, but that they are widely implemented. And so we're looking to ensure that the standards continue to grow in terms of the usage across the globe. That means that where we already have standards implemented, we will try and deepen those implementations with more business partners, and also we will try and introduce standards to what are to us new geographies. In the last couple of years, we have started implementation communities and seen implementations in markets such as Bermuda and in Singapore and India. And of course, we're very keen to see the same for Russia. And all of this feeds into a strategy that we call Acord 2020. It's called 2020 because we're looking forward to the year 2020, and also we're hoping that we're seeing it with perfect vision, which is 2020. So the three areas of focus for Acord 2020 are research and development. This includes identifying emerging challenges and opportunities, both for the industry as a whole and also for individual markets. So, for example, in Russia, there may be certain business practices or challenges that you're particularly concerned with, such as the high cost of brokerage. And there may be some particular business processes that you're hoping to achieve through the standards implementation, and we would help to prioritize those, to raise awareness of that, to advocate the implementation, and so on. It would also be to initiate new standards development. So, for example, we're doing some work in the Middle East looking at the potential for takaful insurance, which is the Sharia or Muslim compliant insurance practices, and whether our standards support those. There may be some additional work that's required based on that. And equally, we would do similar things for other emerging opportunities, such as microinsurance. We will continue to build new implementation communities. So anywhere that there is demand for Acord implementation, we will try and formalize that and structure it in a way that brings the most benefit to that region, and also that helps us to understand their needs. And it will help us to define new products and services to support those implementation initiatives. In terms of implementation communities, we will continue to provide support and aim to provide additional support to communities that already exist, and also to identify new communities. So Russia is the obvious example for you. We're also focusing more on measurement. One of the questions that we're often asked about Acord is, what is the return on investment? How much does it cost to implement? And how quickly and how much can I expect in terms of return? Now, these are questions that typically have been very difficult for us to answer because each implementation is unique. The complexity is down to the company itself. The cost is also down to whether they do it in-house, their skills, or whether they contract a vendor and how much they would charge. So we have no fixed answers for any of these. But what we can do is try and measure the impact of the standards. And we've started to do that. So one example is the Value to Member project, which we recently conducted. The challenge was to try and understand what the value of the standards was to our members. We conducted a survey with some of our members, and the findings of the survey are that in terms of the value to the industry, Accord standards have been are worth approximately $1 billion per year, possibly a lot more than that in terms of savings. That there is no uncertainty that the standards are a net gain for the industry, and that the most important measurable is that there is the speed of doing things is greatly increased by using Accord standards. What I can do is actually share more of this research with you so you can see how these conclusions were reached. And what I will do is I will send that to our colleagues in Russia so they can forward it to you. But for the purposes of today, it suffice to say that implementing Accord standards will speed up operations and save your companies money. Now, specifically, Accord's strategy for Russia, as you will have seen in the video from Greg, the Accord management and the Accord board of directors do support Accord implementation in Russia, and we're very keen to more actively be involved with that work and with a Russian implementation community. We have had discussions in terms of localization of the standards, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we've also been involved in the construction of the Russian Accord implementation roadmap. Now, in terms of localization, the graphic shows what is essentially the same insurable asset, and in the US it's called a truck. In the UK it's called a lorry. And in Russia, I have what I'm told is the correct terminology for a Russian truck. And of course, here we are talking about language. Now, as far as the XML or the electronic language is concerned, our study has shown that using the English tags is the preferable way to move forward because the business is international. And so the content within the data, the content within the messages, can be in Cyrillic script. So the data itself can be Russian, but the XML tags can be in English, which opens up the business internationally and also means that it's easier for you to implement because the hard work of constructing the messages has already been done. However, our colleagues in Russia from Insurance Technologies have expressed an interest in localizing the implementation guides so that they will be available in Russian language to help with implementation. Localizing also some of the advocacy materials so they'll be available in Russian. And also some other materials such as our CEO's books. So we will have Russian content and the messages themselves can carry Russian data and the messages have already been defined. So we believe that this is a really good way to move forwards. And of course, this is a dialogue. So we do things by consensus within Accord, and we're hoping to have that discussion with the Russian implementation community. And in terms of the Russian implementation roadmap, this has been based on Accord's global vision and community roadmaps from London, the USA, and Europe. This methodology is tried and tested and is supported by Accord staff and Accord membership. It provides visibility for what it is each community is trying to achieve and the steps it's going to take to reach that end vision. And Accord is more than happy to assist the Russian insurance community to achieve its goals. As an example, the global vision is to maximize efficiencies and improve client service in insurance and reinsurance operations throughout the global industry value chain. The trends, goals, issues, and enablers have all been identified by the global community, and they're very similar to the ones that are identified in the Russian roadmap. And our involvement with that roadmap has been to certainly oversee its work. We approve its content, and we would like to see that the Russian implementation community signs up to it, and if it feels it needs to make some specific changes, that we would support those and help us to help the community to implement electronic business trading. So, in terms of localization, English XML tags, Cyrillic data content, and Russian language guides. We are hopeful of a signed commitment, which we've already seen actually from key members of the insurance community, and hopefully we will hear about more of that commitment following today's conference. And Accord will share best practices from other communities with Russia. And my message to you in Russia is to get involved. Certainly we would be looking to see a formalization of the implementation community, and where possible we would like to see companies represented in our membership, on our management structure, our governance structure, and also at the events that we put on. And maybe in the future we'll be able to host an event in Russia as well. And so I think I may be somewhat out of time. I may have overshot the time that I was allowed, but I am happy to take questions from you. Yes, I can. Thanks, Alexei. Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting me. And next time, I hope that I will be granted my visa and I'll be able to meet you all face to face. Thank you. Bye-bye.